What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Weekly GCap, the only source you'll ever need to catch up on all the gaming news from the last week. And as always, if there's only a few stories that interest you, feel free to use the chapters down in the description, as well as, labeled there in the time bar. If you start scrolling through, they should show up there. First things first, let's go ahead and go over all the major game releases from the last week. So on November 8th, we had Slitterhead. Then on November 7th, we had Ark of Charon, which was available before but is now leaving early access, Empire of the Ants, Goat Simulator Remastered, Mario and Luigi Brothership, Metro Awakening VR, PS5 Pro, which obviously isn't a game, it's a whole new console, well, mid-gen refresh console, River City Saga, Three Kingdoms Next, Spirit Mancer, and Tectonica, which is another game that was available before but is now leaving early access. Then on November 6th, we had Mirthwood and Planet Coaster 2. Then finally on November 5th, we had Death Note Killer Within, as well as Metal Slug Tactics, which is available day one on Game Pass if you have that service. Next up, two things are free on Epic Games. The first being Deceive Inc., which is a full game, as well as the Apex Legends Ash-Free Unlock Bundle, which is obviously just an add-on for Apex Legends. These will be free until November 14th at 11 a.m. EST, so you might as well redeem them because there's no better price than free. Next up, I got the November Xbox Game Pass games for you guys. So first up, Metal Slug Tactics on November 5th, that is a day one release for the service. Then on November 6th, we have Go Mecha Ball, Harold Halibut, The Rewinder, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, and then on November 7th, we have Goat Simulator Remastered, which is another day one release for the service. And then finally, on November 19th, we have another day one release for the service, that being Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Next up, Death Stranding Shadow dropped on the Xbox Series X and S. So this coming from The Verge, quote, Kojima Productions announced today that the director's cut of Death Stranding is now available on the Xbox Series X and S. At launch for a quote-unquote limited time, the port will be available for 50% off. As part of today's announcement, the studio also launched the game on Luna, Amazon's fledgling game streaming service, end quote. So if you have an Xbox Series console, you should definitely check out this game. Death Stranding is an absolutely fantastic game, and the sequel that's coming up soon looks like it's going to be absolutely fantastic as well. And hey, if you main Amazon Luna, then you can play the game there too. Next up, the PlayStation 5 Pro is available now. So this released November 7th for $699.99 USD. Obviously that varies depending on what region you're in, what currency you use, but there's over 50 PS5 Pro enhanced games at launch, which I figured I'd go ahead and list off all of them for you. So bear with me again, there's over 50 games. From the top, Alan Wake 2, Albatross, Apex Legends, Assassin's Creed Mirage, Baldur's Gate 3, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, EA Sports College Football 25, Dead Island 2, Demon's Souls, Diablo 4, Dragon Age the Veilguard, Dragon's Dogma 2, Dying Light 2 Reloaded Edition, EA Sports FC 25, Enlisted, F1 24, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Fortnite, God of War Ragnarok, Hogwarts Legacy, Horizon Forbidden West, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, Kayak VR Mirage, Liza P, Lords of the Fallen 2023, Madden NFL 25, Marvel Spider-Man Remastered, Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Naraka Blade Point, NBA 2K25, No Man's Sky, Power World, Paladin's Passage, Planet Coaster 2, Professional Spirits Baseball 2024 to 2025, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil Village, Rise of the Ronin, Rogue Flight, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Outlaws, Stellar Blade, Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown, The Crew Motorfest, The Finals, The First Descendant, The Last of Us Part 1, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Until Dawn, War Thunder, Warframe, and finally World of Warships Legends. Hopefully you retained at least a few of those titles. But anyway, it's safe to say that if you have a PS5 Pro or if you plan to pick one up, you have plenty of enhanced games to try out right out the gate, with many more to follow soon. Next up, new Square Enix games will be coming to Xbox. Now you may be wondering why this is relevant in any way, and that's because there's been a bit of a sort of exclusivity deal of sorts between Square Enix and Sony, it seems, where 90% of their games are going to be launching first on PlayStation and will either remain an exclusive indefinitely or at least for a limited amount of time. Namely, I think of the Final Fantasy series, but we have this new quote, which seems like things may be shaking up a bit for the future, and this also applies for games like Final Fantasy. So, just go ahead and get into this. This is coming from Video Games Chronicle, quote, in an interview with 4Gamer for Fantasia Neo Dimension, Yoshida, known by fans as Yoshi P, said that Square plans to launch games on all platforms simultaneously more and more. Quote, of course we want you to play it a lot on other platforms as well, he said. This time we will also release the Xbox Series X and S version at the same time. That's referring to the Fantasia Neo Dimension game. And then in the future, Square Enix titles will be released simultaneously on each platform more and more, but since this is close to the first release, we would like Xbox users to play it as well, end quote. So yeah, that's very exciting for the future, because again, when we look at like the Final Fantasy VII Remake series or Final Fantasy 16 or any other, exclusive Square game over there on PlayStation, it either takes a while for it to get to Xbox or it just doesn't outright. So this is really exciting because for me, I understand why exclusives are a thing. It's really important for each platform to have their mascot and their own identity. You think Xbox, you think Master Chief. You think PlayStation, you think of all the various IPs they have. Really depends on the generation. If you're looking at the PS2, you got like Ratchet & Clank or Jak and Daxter. If you look nowadays, still you got things like Ratchet & Clank still there, but now you got things like Astrobot, where that really, in my opinion, is basically like the main mascot for Sony and PlayStation at this point. And then Nintendo, obviously, they have all their mascots with like Zelda and mainly Mario and Donkey Kong and all of that. But, at the same time, when it comes to third-party games like this, I feel like, just when it comes to video games in general, I believe that video games should be able to be experienced by as many people as possible. And while theoretically, even if a game is exclusive, it can still be experienced by virtually anybody, just technically speaking. Sometimes there's things that get in the way of that, whether it's somebody that doesn't have enough room in their setup for it, or maybe they just don't have enough money, because there's a lot of people out there that maybe either only have enough money to get one of the new consoles, or are still rocking it out on a PS4 or Xbox One just because they haven't had the money to get a new console, which, considering today's economy, is totally understandable. So this is really cool, and hopefully for the future, all Square games, or at least most Square games, will be able to be played by more people. Next up, SEGA classics are being delisted. This coming from GamesIndustry.biz. Quote, SEGA is delisting select games and bundles from its classic collections on digital storefronts starting December 6th, 2024. On its support website, the firm announced that these titles will be unavailable for new purchases, but owned games will still be available in players' libraries, so that's good news there at least. The Sega Genesis Classics bundle will be delisted from Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox with the addition of the Mega Drive bundle on Steam. Those with the NSO subscription will still be able to play individual classic titles. Games including Crazy Taxi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Virtua Fighter 2, and Altered Beast will be delisted on both Xbox and Steam, with other individual titles specific to each platform. End quote. So this is obviously a huge blow when it comes to video game preservation. As always, this constant conversation that we always have to have every time that these games are being delisted. Is there other ways to buy these games, to access these games? Is there unofficial ways to always access these games? Yes, of course. But when it comes to just the general gaming market, the more ways that these games are available, whether we're talking physically or digitally, just to at least, when it comes to video game preservation and such, physical is, there is other ways to preserve games when it comes to digital means, but physical is the first step and arguably the most important step when it comes to preservation. But another huge proponent of preservation is just being able to experience that thing, period. Like when it comes to retro games, sure, it might be difficult to actually get your hands on these things physically from time to time, but, as long as they're available in some capacity, officially or unofficially, like, even if it's something through like Nintendo Switch and their online subscription where you can play like NES and SNES games there, at least that game and that experience is still being preserved. But when you completely remove it outright like this, even though it's still available for the people that already purchased it before, just considering the fact that it's not going to be available to anybody else going forward, huge blow to preserving these experiences. And it's times like this where I really can't blame anybody for sailing the seven seas. Next up, we received a bit of an explanation regarding Assassin's Creed Shadows' delay, and it's, this is something that we already talked about, where it's obviously just them delaying the game so they can polish it up a bit more before they release it, but there's something that was said in here that speaks more to the future of Ubisoft, and I wanted to hone in on that rather than just, the baseline of AC Shadows being delayed. So, this is coming from Eurogamer, quote, AC boss Mark Alex Cote has discussed the recent shock decision to delay the launch of AC Shadows until February, just a month before its originally intended release. Speaking at a BAFTA event attended by Eurogamer in London last night, Cote reflected on the reasons for delay and the crucial importance of the game to Ubisoft at such a pivotal moment for the company and the AC brand. Quote, players can afford to be selective, choosing only the best, and they rightfully demand excellence. Ubisoft's portfolio has faced criticism in recent years for a perceived inconsistency in quality. Players expect more polish, more innovation, and deeper engagement from the games we release, and they're not shy about letting us know when they feel we have fallen short. This environment pushes us to do better and to be better. AC Shadows represents our opportunity to change that narrative, not just for AC, but I think for Ubisoft as a whole. End quote. So that's what I was talking about there. This is more than just being about AC Shadows. This is more about the future of Ubisoft as a whole. And while I personally love Ubisoft and I love their games, I enjoy the Assassin's Creed games and the Far Cry games and the Watch Dogs games and such. It's always cool seeing a AAA company like this, right? Because obviously they make so much money that they can literally wipe themselves with Benjamins. That being said, even seeing a company like Ubisoft take a step back and be like, hey, let's polish this thing up. let's take our time on this, you know, rather than rushing it out and having a disastrous launch. Like, you know, I hate calling back to this because it's one of my favorite games of all time, but let's be honest, the launch is pretty abysmal. Cyberpunk 2077 back in 2020. Abysmal launch. It's a great game, one of my top 5 favorite games of all time, but in terms of how it launched with all the bugs and all that, yeah, completely unacceptable. So again, seeing a giant AAA company like this take a step back and be like, hey, we need to polish this thing up, we really need to take our time, and we need to look at how we're doing things going forward in order, you know, for things to just be, you know, fair to our consumers, for them to receive a better product. I think that's pretty cool. So, round of applause to Ubisoft for doing the right thing, and I can't wait to see what the future has in store for them. Next up, the Hogwarts Legacy sequel is a big priority for Warner Bros. This coming from Video Games Chronicle, quote, obviously a successor to Hogwarts Legacy is one of the biggest priorities in a couple of years down the road. Chief Financial Officer Gunnar Weidenfels said at Bank of America conference in September, and David Haddad, president of Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment, echoed that language in a new interview with Variety. He said Warner Bros. Games is working on a Hogwarts Legacy follow-up, which he described as a very big priority for the company's top executives. Haddad said the sequel will share some big picture storytelling elements with Warner Bros. Television's upcoming Harry Potter series, which is targeted to hit HBO in 2026, end quote. So that's still a good fair bit off. That's almost like 2 whole years, but I just wanted to highlight this because obviously Hogwarts Legacy and the sequel is going to be a huge priority for WB because, I mean, Hogwarts Legacy, for a while, people were wondering, like, hey, is this going to be like a Game of the Year contender? Could it possibly win Game of the Year like when it first came out just because it's that good of a game? But it's just really interesting to me because not only are we hearing about the sequel, which was inevitable, but now, you know, obviously we know about this HBO show coming up. And I'm really liking this direction that we've been seeing lately, how, like, for example, when Season 1 of The Last of Us dropped, we also had The Last of Us Part 1 releasing to sort of coincide with that. Now we're hearing about a Hogwarts Legacy sequel in the works, and then, you know, obviously you have the show that's going to be coming out either around that time, or, you know, there's probably going to be a bit of a stagger there where the show comes out, then the game a bit later, or maybe the game first, and the show just... whatever it is, it's still going to be close enough to where it's sort of like this cross-marketing thing of like, hey, gamers are going to hear about this show and they'll probably check out the show. People that like watching shows and like Harry Potter might hear about the game and then go play the game, because that happened a lot when The Last of Us happened. So I just think it's really cool how in recent years we've seen a bit of this cross-promotion of sorts between different medias, whether it be games and shows or games and movies or one thing or another. Either way you spin it, I love Harry Potter and I'm super excited not only for the show, but also obviously the sequel to Hogwarts Legacy. And you know, we also got like that Harry Potter Quidditch game a bit ago, so I'd love to see if they, you know, keep delving into the Harry Potter universe and fleshing it out and giving us more games, more spin-off games. But for the time being, just in case anybody didn't know, yeah, a Hogwarts Legacy sequel is in the works. Next up, we'll keep this short and sweet, but the Nintendo Switch Successor is confirmed to be backwards compatible with the Nintendo Switch. This coming from Nintendo's Japan X account, quote, this is for Furukawa. At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch Online will be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date, end quote. So there it is. Just keeping it short and sweet, it is officially confirmed by Nintendo themselves that the next Switch will be backwards compatible. Thank goodness for people like me that have a lot of Nintendo Switch games, both physically and digitally. Let me tell ya, big sigh of relief. So thank goodness. Next up, a Donkey Kong Country 2 cheat code was discovered after 29 years. This is coming from GamerRant. Quote, a gamer called H4V0C21, aka Havoc21, uncovered a new cheat code for DKC2 Diddy's Kong Quest. It still blows my mind how all these years later there's still people that call it Diddy Kong's Quest when, you know, it totally goes against the play on words. Diddy's Kong Quest. Okay, anyway, sorry, I'll stop. According to this discovery, gamers can pause the game, press right plus Y, left plus A, up plus B, and down plus X, and they will return to the DKC2's overworld map at any moment. The secret command can even be used in levels that were not completed by the player and is useful to prevent some deaths. End quote. So, now that the knowledge is out there, if you've struggled to beat DKC2 before, which I can't blame you, you know, it's a bit more of a challenging platformer, not necessarily the Dark Souls of 2D platformers by any means, but you know, some challenging elements to it, then there you go, you can beat the game without having to worry about game overs now. Granted, you'll be repeating the levels a lot, but At least you'll be saving your lives. And finally, this one's really cool, so that's why I saved it for last, but the Halo 2 E3 2003 demo is coming to the Master Chief Collection. This is coming from news.xbox.com. Quote, many of us remember that iconic Halo 2 demo shown at E3 way back in 03. Not only was it an iconic moment for the gaming industry at the time, it also showcased what was possible not only in the Halo universe, but for the future of Xbox entirely. The demo was groundbreaking and is fondly remembered by Halo fans today, but the effort to restore it has become a great journey in itself. Quote, the buzz and hype going into that event was off the charts and the stakes were higher than ever, says Brian Gerard, community director on Halo. I have fond memories of so much playtesting and practicing, internal challenges to see who could take out every single enemy in a flawless playthrough. Now, for the first time ever, fans will be able to step back to 2003 inside a recreation of the demo, playable inside the Halo Master Chief Collection via Steam. Quote, the response to the demo at E3 was electric, and nearly every Halo fan remembers that demo and where they were when they were first blinded by its majesty, Gerard adds. Best of all, none of us ever would have expected that 20 plus years later, a group of passionate community modders would bring this demo to life as a full-fledged mission. End quote. Several snags with technology have kept this demo locked away for many years, however, thanks to the work of the Dig Site Data Archaeology Archive and valiant efforts from the wider Halo community, the original assets and files were able to be recovered, but it wasn't all smooth sailing from there either. The demo was built in a version of the Halo engine that no longer exists, and the assets were not compatible with any other existing versions of Halo 2. Quote, this put us in a bit of a quandary, Halo senior franchise writer Kenneth Peters tells us. Even the original executable file is difficult to work with, as you need an Xbox dev kit to get it to boot, which is an increasingly short supply even within the studio, but now in 2024 we have the Dig Site develop tools to analyze and automate porting old assets and the unearthed knowledge to know why Bungie built things the way they did in the demo. Steven Garcia, known to the community as General_101, was vital in getting this scenario stood up and even improved over the original. He was a one-man army and did a significant chunk of the work in developing tools, updating scripts, and even arting the levels. Dig Site team members Ludus, Neo T, Ika, Sean T, ex-Scruffy to Sasquatch X, and Killzone then provided finishing touches to replicate the original demo experience and test for bugs. Without them, we would have probably only had a rather unceremonious drop of raw assets, and that was it, end quote. As part of the Dig Site partnership between the studio and the modding community, players will be able to go hands-on with the remastered Halo 2 E3 demo when this free mod releases on the Steam Workshop on November 9th, aka Saturday. I know that was a lot to digest, I know that was a lot to read, but, you know, again, this was so cool, and it's one of those, you know, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the show about SEGA delisting some of their games, except obviously in the opposite way now, where it's really unfortunate anytime things are, you know, being delisted because it completely spits in the face of preserving these games and these experiences. But then you have stuff like this, where, you know, these small pieces of media that we thought were lost forever, even if it isn't that original piece, enough of it was restored to a point of where we can actually re-experience these things, and, you know, even if it isn't the original thing, it's still close enough to that experience, and it's so cool. The amount of love and work that went into just bringing this to life and making it possible. It's just awesome, man. I remember this demo from back in the day. I remember seeing the videos and the gameplay, and it's just, oh man, absolutely mind-blowing. Just there's so much hype built around it, and again, I'm so excited for November 9th, because I am definitely diving into this to try it out. It's so exciting. It's super cool, and if you're a fan of Halo, and especially if you're into like the history of Halo like I am, then I'm sure just hearing the story was enough to get you all giddy and totally make your day, because I know it made mine. But anyway, that is all the stories that I have for you guys this week, so that's that. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. If you want to catch new episodes of WGC as soon as they go live every single Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern. I'd love to have you here, but anyways, that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day and an amazing weekend. Stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.